Hey guys, welcome back here to Intuitive Angling, and really appreciate you guys swinging by the channel and hanging out with me a little bit today. We're going to be talking about the fact that bass fishing, in my opinion, has entered its most dangerous era that we've ever had. I've been fishing, guys, since the late 1960s for bass, and there's not even another period that's even close. And this is something that we have got to continually bring to the forefront in the discussion amongst the bass anglers in this country. If we don't, we are not going to have a sustainable future in the sport. So I'm going to continue doing that. And one of the worst things that can happen, and one of the things that the entities and the people and the companies that are responsible for the stuff that I'm talking about, is they want a normalization of this. And they count on the fact that people are going to get burned out talking about it and move on to something else that's more brighter and shinier. But that's not going to happen around here, guys. Anytime that I see injustices in the sport that threaten the future of it, I'm going to call it out, and I'm going to use my platform to do so. So we're going to do that in today's episode here. Also, guys, before we get started, a couple different things here. Solar Bat, they've only got a couple more days left on the end of the year sale on my Solar Bat sunglasses right now. 50% off on my RB2s or 3s. These are the RB3 frames right here. 50% off. You get a free hard case to put them in and free shipping and handling. So I'll put the Solar Bat link in the description of the video. And also, guys, anybody interested in becoming an Intuitive Angling channel member, channel members get my personal email address where you can email me your fishing questions. You get private videos every week that aren't seen by the public. We got membership starting as low as $4.99 a month. All you have to do is go to the homepage, see that little thing that says join on it, just hit that for info. So really appreciate that. Okay, two things I want to talk about today: the how and why we are entering the most dangerous phase of the sport, possibly three, well, there's probably more, but there's two big ones out there. And the first one, we're going to get into this tech arms race. And you guys have heard me talking about forward-facing sonar for several years now, so I don't want to get into that on the forward-facing sonar. If you watch my channel, you're very aware of that. We all know the destructive element that forward-facing sonar has brought to our sport. We've seen it. We're in the middle of it right now. But what I am more concerned about than even forward-facing sonar, and I have been, guys, for the past 2 months, I have been working my butt off researching all this AI potential that's entering fishing, guys, and it will freaking terrify you to death. It's like there are plans in place right now that is going to incorporate and integrate AI more and more into bass fishing, becoming more intrusive in the sport. And there is nothing that it's not going to affect. Absolutely nothing. We've already seen the warnings put out by people that know about this. The guy that developed AI himself said that, it's not going to be very much longer where AI is going to take everybody's job. And even if you're something like a plumber or a contractor or something like that doesn't, do office work or something where that can be easily replaced by AI, they're going to have robotics. Robotics are right along in line with AI technology. So from that standpoint, just the job element, and then Elon Musk himself, who I'm definitely no fan of Elon Musk, but he even made the statement that AI poses the biggest threat to the human civilization that there is. So when you've got two tech bros like that are really responsible for the perpetuation of this AI explosion we go through right now, issuing these warnings, it's like, what the hell are we doing? It's like, why are we perpetuating things that's going to degrade and potentially destroy the human species? I don't understand the insanity of that. Excuse me. So that's one element of it. But the element that I'm concerned about when you talk about entering this dangerous era of bass fishing is the influence that AI is going to have on every single aspect of it. First of all, there's just on a personal level, as a YouTube creator, guys, it's not going to be very many more years where you're not going to see hardly any creators on YouTube and bass fishing like myself. It's all going to be AI generated crap. The AI is going to take like all of my videos, and they're going to take all of Matt Steffen's videos and all of Johnny Schultz's videos and all of Brian Latimer's videos and all the other top YouTubers out there, and they're going to have this AI content. So if you want to Google, it's like, how to rig a plastic worm, or how to fish a jerkbait, or how to flip a jig, then you're going to be referred to this AI information where you got these fake people on there that are, assembling information out of, real creators. That's going to be one aspect of it. Then you start to get into the whole thing about the technology integrated with AI to where there is literally nothing left. I mean, it is not a stretch of the imagination for AI technology to advance to the point within fishing where it's like you got some device. I don't even know what it is. Like I said, I don't even know what this looks like. I just know that the motion has been set in place for this, where you go out on the lake and you got this ability to not only decipher and find out and know where every single fish in the lake is, but you can detect their mood and their personality. You can see their position. You can see their size. You can see the other, predatory fish or bait fish around them. You can assimilate all of the data that you have, the external data, like the weather patterns and the weather systems and the water clarity and the wind speed, and correlate this in with the mood and the personality of the fish and all these, millions of data points that we have learned about fishing so far, to where you're plugged in and you know exactly where to go and exactly what bait to throw. And I don't know, maybe you get to the point where you're not even fishing anymore. Maybe your boat is self-directed over to a place and you have some robotic that throws out there and catches a fish for you. Of course, that's an extreme to the situation, but you get what I'm talking about. It's like AI is going to have an influence in every single corner of bass fishing. And technology has no place in fishing, guys. Technology may be great for like medicine or something like that, but bass fishing, there's no room for it. It's like when you're talking about the intrinsic value of fishing on a real foundational baseline level, it does not involve technology whatsoever. Technology degrades the sport at any level, anything that, any reason or metric, how you want to measure about it, technology destroys the entire aspect of fishing. And it goes into other things too. It goes into just the sustainability of the resource and the pressure on the fish. And aside from just the whole, the more, theoretical, the ideal what fishing should be, that has a practical implications on how it's going to degrade the sport to a point where it probably won't even exist anymore. So that's one of the big things. The second one is environmental degradation. And every time I say this, people tune out because they don't want to hear it. They think somebody else is taking care of this problem. And guys, I can tell you something right now. It's like one of those two things is going to take this sport out, because we don't have people in positions of power right now that have any desire to regulate this stuff. We don't have any regulatory bodies on AI or advancing sonar technology. We don't have any adults in the room that understand the fact that you have got to have strong environmental regulations in place to prevent this, and to have safeguards in place to prevent this. And right now we have people in positions of power that are dismantling all of our environmental safeguards. They're taking regulations completely out of it, and the only reason is to make it easier for the companies that are doing this, that are polluting, to make bigger profits, so they don't have to meet these regulatory environmental safeguard guidelines, which cost a little bit of money. So we don't have anybody in positions of power in this country right now that give a crap about that. It's all about making a buck and how they can enrich billionaire friends and all this type of stuff. We're in a bad place when it comes to that. And I want to give you guys some examples of this environmental degradation on a couple different levels so you can understand clearly. Several different areas with this, depending upon the part of the country. And if you're down south or you're in a place where there's a lot of aquatic vegetation, you've seen it firsthand with like the spraying of herbicides and chemicals on aquatic vegetation to control aquatic vegetation that's been there for millions of years. And when you start putting toxic chemicals into water, it does not go, the entire food system and ecosystem is destroyed. It's like when you go, all these goobs down in Florida that you see in airboats spraying these chemicals out there, when they go through there and spray a freaking grass line or reed line, it kills everything. It kills the plankton, the zooplankton, it kills the small fish. The whole food chain is affected by it. And let me give you several examples how I've witnessed this firsthand, the environmental degradation. And I've mentioned this before in the past. You go down to Lake Okeechobee, 50 years ago. And the first time I fished Lake Okeechobee was the mid-1980s. And you went down there, it was a completely different place. Okeechobee was clear everywhere. There were miles of pepper grass and grass beds that go way out into the lake that filtered the lake. And then there was so much vegetation around the lake that even in the middle of Okeechobee, it was clear water. You had like 4 and 5 foot of visibility in the middle of Lake Okeechobee. I remember Roland Martin winning a Bassmaster tournament down there, cranking a rock pile in the middle of the lake, because it's nice and clear out there. Fast forward to 2025, Lake Okeechobee is a freaking septic tank. And it's pea green, nasty looking, crappy, muddy water everywhere, except for just a few areas of the lake that, are filtered out by that. So not only have you lost so much of the aquatic habitat at Okeechobee, you've lost the water quality. Okeechobee now, 90% of it is a mud pit where there's no fish can even be caught in there. All of the fish, and why Okeechobee continues to put out good fish, and you don't see this as much, is that all these big fish on this massive lake are in a very concentrated in a very small part of the lake that has decent water quality and vegetation in it. That's one example, and that has occurred from not only the spraying of Lake Okeechobee, but it's occurred from all the agricultural runoff down there, all those sugarcane fields, all the farming, cows or whatever like that, putting all these nutrients in the lake, causing algae blooms, and everybody, and nobody stops it down there. It's such a huge part of the economy that nobody's going to stop it, because all the politicians down there, everybody's in cahoots with everybody, and it goes all throughout the course of the state of Florida. Another couple things is like, I remember a few years ago fishing back up at Lake Eufaula in Alabama, and I like to fish up the river at Eufaula, but if you've ever been up the river at Eufaula, it stinks like crap up there. There's paper plants up there and all this stuff, and it's got this toxic smell in the air. And then you'll go up there and you'll see these mysterious pipes on the bank pumping water into the Chattahoochee River on the upper end of Lake Eufaula, like these PVC pipes. And you go over there and you smell them, and it smells like toxic chemicals getting put into the water up there. Why are we doing this shit? Why are we allowing these companies to put pipes that are pumping this crap into our lakes, just nefariously? I don't know the situation with that. Surely the EPA, which now has been completely undermined, and for various reasons, but all the government agencies that should be monitoring this stuff are failing us everywhere. This is not an isolated incident. This goes on everywhere. It goes on all over the country. I'll give you I'll finish up with one other prime example here. A little creek down where I grew up fishing in Joplin, Missouri, where I learned how to bass fish down there. It's called Turkey Creek. And Turkey Creek, I waded it every day after school. And throughout this about a half-mile section of the creek that I waded by my parents' house, it had clear water, and you had typical creek scenario. You had deep pools and you had shallow pools. You had riffles and you had current. You had deep pools and eddies, and a lot of fish there. And even 50 some years ago, I would go down there and catch a lot of bass, like on a plastic worm or a little rapala minnow, something like that. Not knowing anything about fishing, but I'd still catch a lot of bass. Okay, fast forward to 2025, some goober down there bought up. There was a big field down there adjacent to Turkey Creek, like probably a 100-acre field down there, full of wildlife and everything. And some freaking goober developer came in there, bought the property right there on the edge of the creek, and put a housing development in there. And I'd never been so pissed in my life. I talked about that before. I went down there, guys, last year, and I just wanted to reminisce the creek, and I wanted to wade the creek, and just to see, because I hadn't been down there forever. The creek had been silted in everywhere. There were no deep holes anymore. All it was freaking, washed out gravel and, sediment that had washed in there from the housing development. I didn't catch a single bass. And then you go down the stream a little bit, and there's a big roofing company down there that's pumping no telling what crap into the creek, and there's no fish on the other end of the creek. So effectively, Turkey Creek has been destroyed through development. This goes on everywhere out there. This environmental degradation that we're seeing affects every single state in this country, and nobody's putting a brake on it. That's the most frustrating thing about this, is we have become a society that is basically killing our grandchildren to feed our children, with very little oversight on any type of protections. It's just like the creek down there at Turkey Creek. Why was this guy allowed to do that? Why didn't the zoning and planning committee say, no, you're not going to do this, because you got Turkey Creek right here on the edge of this field, and it's going to basically kill this creek if you put this housing development in there? Hell no. Zoning and planning go ahead and pass this like they do in every freaking city and state in the country, and just give carte blanche to developers to do what they want to. And it's this type of mentality, guys, that's going to take out fishing, probably going to take out the human race as well. It's the short-sightedness of this, and the denial of scientific reality, just like the denial of man-made climate change, the denial of the fact that our country and our planet is becoming overpopulated. We don't have the resources, the sustainability to live in balance. And I don't care what you are. I don't care if you're a freaking giraffe or a mouse or a rabbit or a human being. If you don't live in balance with your environment, you can't survive. And humans have become so arrogant and so detached from reality and so detached from science that they think that they are above the laws of nature, and we're not. When you start interrupting this entire food chain and the cycle of life, it may seem irrelevant now. It may seem irrelevant that these little pollution issues I'm talking about are going to have an impact. But when you start multiplying that year after year after year, and it continues to be unregulated, it is unsustainable. It doesn't take Einstein to understand that when you go down and kill off the basic, foundation of any food chain on any part of this planet, it's going to affect the bigger part of the food chain eventually. The only thing is how long it's going to take to do that. So, I don't know, guys. That's what I'm saying about we've entered a dark era. And one of the reasons I say this is the problems that I'm talking about can be solved. But we don't have people in positions of power that have the responsibility or the foresight or the vision or the courage or the ethics or the integrity to do so. It goes back to making money. Do you think these electronic companies in fishing, if they're making billions of dollars or millions of dollars on designing these new, high-tech, products that keeps bass fishing in a perpetual, tech arms race, do you think they're going to stop, unless somebody stops them because they're making millions of dollars? I mean, do you think that somebody down in Florida that unnecessarily sprays toxic herbicides and chemicals because they're in cahoots with the chemical companies, and they're in cahoots with the, somebody that has the authority to authorize that spraying, that somebody's getting their palms greased? Do you think that's going to stop? I mean, do you think that a company that's pumping effluent into the Chattahoochee River or Turkey Creek or any lake that you're around, do you think that, if they get slapped on the wrist for some environmental regulation, but they're still making hundreds of millions of dollar profit every year, do you think they give a crap about, some type of environmental fine? They're just going to pay it and move on and do the same thing. And oh man, it's just so freaking irritating. It's just like, I'm sort of going off on a little rant here, but it's just like this zoning and planning commission I went to in Springfield, Missouri. They had a meeting a couple weeks ago here about they're wanting to allow some commercial development in an environmentally sensitive area of Springfield. And, I went to the zoning and planning commission and freaking, ripped them one side and up the other about what they're potentially doing here. But again, they just don't give a crap. They're going to say, oh, such and such wants to put this development, or he wants to put this strip mall in over here, and we see no reason not to grant this permit. Granted, what's the next move we're going to make? So I'm not real confident when it comes to that, guys. The only thing that I will be confident in is when we get people in positions of authority in this country on every single level that have the ability to understand science and what our actions are doing to the future, and then they have the ethics and integrity not to get influenced by money and to do the right thing to keep this country sustainable for the future. You know, that's the only thing that's going to change it, and that's a hard road to hoe, because it's this vicious cycle about that people that benefit off of this, they want to keep people in positions of power that enable that, you know, behavior to continue. So it's only when we get to the point where it's almost too late that we do anything. It's like one of the things that I found out about the human beings in general is they don't make positive change unless they are forced to do so. And a lot of times that, you know, that's too late when that happens. So anyway, guys, we're going to continue to talk about this. I know a lot of you guys get burned out on it. A lot of you guys say, Randy, you're tired of hearing about it. I don't want to hear about freaking forward-facing sonar. I don't want to hear about your man-made climate change opinions. I don't want to hear about environmental issues. All I want to do is go out and catch bass. I hear that all the time. But guys, you can't do that. It's like, if you're a bass angler, you have a responsibility. And that responsibility is to leave the sport better than you found it for the next generation. And we do not have that type of mentality right now. We did a little bit back in the 1970s when Ray Scott, you know, was suing all the companies for polluting our lakes around the country. He was initiating lawsuits against polluters. You know, he started the whole catch and release thing. We don't have that type of guidance like we did with Ray Scott back in the 70s anymore. I don't hear anybody talking about it. And I don't know, man. We're not in a good place right now. And the only thing that I can do is use my platform, you know, to spread some awareness about that. And then maybe other people will do the same and keep spreading it. And then get to the point where you can influence it. Because you know how you can influence this stuff, guys? It's through your purchasing power and your voting power. You know, these people that are in positions of power, whether it be in politics or business, they need us. They need our money to support them. They need your vote. And if you don't give it to them, guys, they are powerless. And that's what you have to keep doing. You have to keep threatening them that. It's like, if you continue to do this, we're not going to buy your product. If you continue this type of behavior and continue voting like you are, we are going to vote you out of office. That's the only thing we can do as a, you know, some type of a society as a whole in the bass fishing community. So anyway, guys, I'll keep bringing it to the attention. I know these are not the videos a lot of people like to hear, but they're very necessary videos, and I really appreciate the people that take the time to, you know, understand what I'm talking about here, because it's the good fight to have. It's the right thing to do, and I can assure you guys that if we make it another 30 or 40 years in the sport, the people that are in positions of power of the sport right now, whether it be, you know, within the industry or things that affect the sport from the outside of the industry, they are going to be looked at some of the biggest villains on the history of this planet for what they did to the sport of bass fishing, unless it changes. It doesn't have to be like that, but we have got to start to take action. So anyway, guys, hope you're well. We'll talk later.